Okay, so let's continue from where we stop. So hi guys. So we looked at the image, we looked at the table, and we've looked at a lot of things, the container, typography. So let's move to one important aspect. Let's talk about form. So we're going to talk about form, buttons, and some other things that are related to form. So how does form works in Bootstrap? How do we use our Bootstrap with form? Excuse me. Excuse me, please. So how do we use our Bootstrap with form? Okay, so remember your HTML. Let me see. Okay, so let's make use of our grid here. Let me do something with grid, or let me just take out the table. Let me take out the table. So we could let me just leave the table. Let's make use of everything together. So let's say we have remember our form tag. Then all we need to do is say inputs. Then we'll say type. Then we're having text area, whatsoever. Then we can put a placeholder like enter your first name. So if we check this in our browser, we should have something close to. You remember this form? Yeah, that was our form back then. So let's talk about form in Bootstrap. How do we make use of this form Bootstrap? Does it look different? Do we have classes that take care of form different from our regular form? Okay, so this is how it works. So we have a class called form control, form group. We have form group, we have form control. It does different things. So for instance, now if we want to do, for instance, let me start with the label so that we'll start. Normally we used to have something like label. Then we'll say, okay, this label is for what? That means we'll be giving this form an ID. We'll say an ID of, let's say, first name. So we'll come and say label. Then we'll say for. Then 4 will be the ID, first name. If you don't remember this, so you might actually have to go back and watch the HTML tutorial, or probably just head down to w3school.com. From there, you could get how to take care of forms. Okay, so when we say first name, back then we just put in our label. We can say, okay, first name. So if I should come here and I refresh, we should have something like this. Let me take off this image. But in Bootstrap, we have something different. So there's a class for label, which is known as form label. Or just do say class, then say form label. Now if I should come in here now, refresh, nothing has happened. But let me work on the form itself. So for the form, we have a class. We said form control. So we should come back here and refresh. We should have, can you see, we have the label at the top, and we have a form looking good, looking better than before. So that's form control in Bootstrap. So, and not just form control, we have form label, we have form control. That's for, so let's just say we want to create let's say first name, then let's have another one. Let me just duplicate this. Let me just duplicate this. Okay. Then I'll call this, let me just call this password. So we'll call this pwd. So we'll call this ID pwd. Then we'll say the type will be what? Password. Remember, we have a password field. So we'll just make the placeholder to be star. So if we should come here and refresh our page, we shall have a text password. Yeah. So same thing applies to a lot. So, but there is a different thing when it comes to dealing with things like checkbox. If you want to do checkbox, remember our checkbox. Okay, this is how we go about doing our checkbox. We could just put that in a, we're going to put in that in a div. First, you say div. So the class of the div must be, is what we call form check. Form check. Hope you are getting this. Then we have our label as usual. The class of our label is always form label. But this time around, the difference between checkbox and the regular form is everything will be within the label. They will say, okay, inputs, we'll say type is equals to, our type is checkbox. Then we have a class. So the class for checkbox is not the regular, it's different from our regular form control. This is form check input. Don't worry, you don't have to cram all these things. I'm going to give you a place where you get to see all this. You can go quickly and just look for all this syntax and get it in time. Okay, so now we can now come and put the label. Let's say remember me. So if we save this, if we go to our form and refresh, can you see we have our checkbox? So that's one of the things we do with form in that's how we do with form in Bootstrap. So let's talk about the button since it's part of the form. Let's look at the button. Say button. If I say submit, I'm sure we're going to have some kind of ugly button. Can you see we have some kind of ugly button? So let's make the button looks good. So in Bootstrap, we have a lot of things that we do with button. So the first class for button is you say class btn. That's the first class for button. Now we now have different kind of btn. We have different kind of button. Now if I save this, you see the kind of button we're going to have. You can see we have a button without a background. It actually has a background, but the background is very light. So that's btn. Now we can now put colors using our previous color that we learned. Remember we learned success, danger, info. But this time around we'll put btn. Instead of text, btn will precede the color. So we can say btn danger. That means we're going to have a red button. So if I come here now and I refresh, can you see we have a red submission button? So same thing applies. We can have btn dark. Remember your btn dark. Now we have the black button. So we can have btn warning and so on and so forth. Now we also have some other things about button. Sometimes we could want to make our button different from what it is at the moment. We don't want a background, we just want outline. So we have outline colors for our button. So for that, what we need to do is you had outline before the particular color you want. For instance, now we want a black outline. We'll just say btn outline dark. So if I should come here and refresh this, you have a dark border, but when you over it, you can see we're having the black button. So that's for the outline. So I can say btn outline success. So if I use btn outline success, if I should come here and refresh, you see we have a green outline for our button. And we can also deal with the sizes of our button. For instance, now if I want a small button, I can use btn sm. Remember sm is small in Bootstrap, so btn sm. If I should come here and refresh, you can see the button is smaller. If I want a large button, I'll say btn lg. The button is bigger. So if I want the button to fill the whole place, like I want a block button, I want a button that will fill everywhere, I can come here and say, okay, btn block. coming. I don't know why this is not working. That's for full width. BTN block should fill the whole place. Okay, I don't know why it's not working, but it's supposed to be BTN block. I will look at that. Probably something has been changed. Then we'll look at it and make an adjustment later. But that's button for you. So sometimes we want to disable our button. We don't want we want our button to be disabled. You can write BTN disabled. Let me use our regular. Let me use BTN. BTN success. Let me see. Okay, sorry. For the disable, you don't have to put BTN. You just put disabled. Sorry, disabled only. So if I come here and refresh, so this button is not clickable. Probably you want to check if something's happened before some buttons can be clickable. Okay, so we also have some other things in our button, but we might not really go into that. I think these are the ones we might actually need for now. So with that to button. So if let me just copy this button and replace, so I'll see the difference. So if I save this now, if I refresh this, you can see this is clickable. Why this is not clickable? Because this is disabled. So that'll be all for our buttons. So that'll be all for when it comes to button and Bootstrap. Okay, so I think we've discussed our form. Okay, so let's look at some other part of our form. I just use that to talk about a button. Let's look at the other part of our form. What if you want to have a drop down and so on and so forth. So for our form, for drop down in our forms, let's look at that select. We want to select our menus. Okay, let's look at this. For instance, we have previously we normally use say select, then we use option. We can say okay, first option is John, second option is Mary, third option is let's say Phillips, so on. So if we come in here and refresh, remember this is what we normally have as our drop down before, but with Bootstrap we have something different. We have a class we call form selects. So if I come in here now and I refresh this, you can see we have something different from that. So we have it look very good and very beautiful. So that's what's it called? That's for Bootstrap. That is the class for Bootstrap form. So when it comes to drop down, we can also use a disabled class on this. I can say form. I can come here and say disabled. So if I come here and I refresh this will not be clickable. So that's the way it works. So you can see our Bootstrap is making our form to look extremely wonderful. That Bootstrap is making it to look good. Now let's look at what we call groups, input groups. What do I mean by input groups? Sometimes we want to input some set of things together. We want to add some little icons to our forms. Okay, let me put that here. So for here we'll say class is equals to input group. Then we'll have an input. The regular input, your type will be text. So remember our class for our form is form control. You can have a placeholder and say username. Now, how do we add this input group? We need to add a span. We span this form. We'll close the span here. So here we'll say class of the span will be, say, input group text. Yeah, for example, we can say, okay, there's a username, we want to use this. So sorry, I made a mistake. I'm supposed to close this span at the top. So if we save this now, if I should go to our browser and I refresh, can you see we have an icon here showing that this is a username. Is supposed to be an email actually. So sometimes we want to add icons like this. So we call this, we use input group for this. I believe we understand what I'm trying to do. Or for instance, you might want to, like, okay, you want them to put just the email. You don't want them to put, for example, you want to explain how the email should look like, for instance. Excuse me. So we can say, okay, let this come down. Okay, so you can be like, at example.com. So that means, before the icon was before, now it will be after. So if you come here and refresh, so okay, whenever you're going to write here, she'll be at something.com. That's an example of input group. So, and our input group can also be in sizes. Can be in sizes. We can come here and say, okay, input group. Where's our input group? Yeah, our input group. You can say, you can use LG. You can say input group LG. That's large. I believe you remember all our different. We have LG. Can you see it larger? We have SM. We have MD. We have XL. So if it's SM, we'll save this now. If we come here and refresh, it's smaller. So that's all for input group. And sometimes it could be more than one input group. You could stack them together. For instance, let me remove this. I could just come here and add 2 of this. Probably I'm trying to explain 2 things. I want them to just see this twice. So if I come here, I refresh, you can say I want to, okay, maybe it should be at something, you understand? So that's all for our input group. So in our next tutorial, we'll be talking about the form validation. We can just take care of it since our video is not that long. Let's do some validations. And our validation is just like trying to put validation in our forms. Not like we're trying to validate the form. We'll use JavaScript or some other thing to validate the form when we get there. But we can just say, okay, here I want a small class. I want something. I want if the person did not enter the username, you should come and say, okay, class. We'll say text danger. I said input your username. I don't want us to do much on this, but we'll work with this. It's supposed to be down. Don't want to work with this when we get to JavaScript. We'll be able to make use of it. For now, let's just assume it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist for now because we're actually not working with JavaScript yet. So we're just looking at Bootstrap as a whole. So we're looking at the CSS aspect of Bootstrap. Okay, so that'll be all for this class. So we'll meet in the next class. Thank you very much.